Damn, this feels like I'm giving a witness statement or something in a documentary. Well, I wanted to talk to you about something today, a little different, as you can see with the setup and everything. After being a content creator for a while, especially a content creator that makes content for content creators, I had to come up with some pretty controversial or hot takes, if you will. And one of those was, the famous, if you have a full-time job, then it might be easier for you to actually create content because your schedule is set. You have a very limited amount of time, which means that what else are you gonna do, right? You come back from work, you have like a 1 hour period. This is the window that you have, so you have to stick to it. Whereas if you give someone 24 hours completely free with no discipline, most likely they will struggle. Like they will really, really struggle. This is where, my fellow procrastinators are gonna shine. This is not what the video is about today. I actually want to talk about another take that I have that might be considered a hot take. I don't know if it's a good take or a bad take, but it goes as follows. I don't remember if I tweeted it or if I said it in a podcast, but basically I say that sometimes people in your niche, people who do the exact same thing as you, people who have the same target audience as you, might be more successful, might be more likely to find success in said niche if they are less passionate than you about that subject, right? And of course, allow me to explain. This is going to be the whole video, by the way. Allow me to explain everything I say before you start typing comments. Basically, there are certain niches, there are certain categories, certain domains where if you are too passionate about it, you develop like this emotional connection with everything inside it, and it hurts your potential at the same time, right? For example, it's hard to make an example without calling people out. So let's make a vague one. Let's say you are in a niche where there's a lot of snobs, right? And a lot of you can definitely relate to that, right? There's a lot of gatekeepers, a lot of people who are like, oh, you're not a real this if you don't do that, you're not a real this, and it's basically like driving people away. It's making people miserable within the niche. Someone who comes in who doesn't care about all of those things, who just comes in to appeal and pander and make their money and then dip, it'll be easier for them to actually like be successful in that niche because they don't care about all of this stuff, right? They don't care about judgment within that niche, right? It's hard not to think of VTubers right now. But it's not just VTubers. It's not just VTubers, trust me. There's so many different categories where people are extremely snobbish, extremely gatekeepy, and it's horrible. But someone else that comes in and just panders to them is going to be praised because they just analyze them, right? They just analyze, they're like, oh, what do they like? Okay, what do they don't like? Okay, I'm with content based on that. And I can't say it's a scam because, supply and demand and stuff, but we all have this weird thing where we don't want to be judged. We care so much about our particular group that the worst thing that could happen is someone in that group saying something negative about me. I don't want to be seen as, a traitor to that group and And the reason I came up with this take is because I've seen people enrolled in this thing. I had a good friend, well, still my friend, a makeup artist, where I was like, you have a ton of knowledge in this. You could easily make a YouTube channel where you explain like your process, where you explain like tips and tricks and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, I can never make a YouTube video because I do not want to expose the industry. I do not want to give tips and tricks. I do not want to teach people how to do this because other makeup artists will hate me for basically teaching people how to make money without going to like a makeup school or whatever, right? Same thing. I have another friend who's a dev who is like super smart, super intelligent, and super capable of doing anything. You give her an idea and she'll like come up with it. Like in the next 24 hours, you have like a functioning code that does whatever you want. And I really mean whatever you want. Same thing. I'm like, you could make videos that are super interesting where you make all sorts of things. It can be entertaining, it can be helpful, you can help progress society and things like that. And I got the same answer. Oh, I would never want to make a YouTube video because my peers, other devs, or people who are better than me might criticize me or might extradite me. It's kind of like a weird cult behavior where it's like, oh, I can't do anything that might endanger the cult because the cult will shun me. So it's a weird thing. So we end up in this situation where the people who come in with not necessarily the great intentions, but people who come in just to profit are successful. Like they are successful at pulling in, just analyzing the situation, making their money, and then dipping with like no passion whatsoever. And unfortunately, it's the best mental state to be in for you to be freely able to, make your content. Of course, it doesn't apply to every niche. I'm mostly talking about things like YouTube, like content creators like that, not necessarily live streamer, which I know like I have a lot of you. But even then, like you can clearly imagine a live streamer that comes in, basically studies the audience and figures out all the different ways to monetize a live stream, and then has a highly monetized live stream, and then gets successful and actually makes a bunch of money with live streaming, while you are the live streamer who's like, well, I don't want to feel like I'm begging. Like, oh, I don't want to feel like I'm doing this. I don't want to feel like this. Oh, what if this? What if that? So the person who's not emotionally connected to the niche is not as emotionally invested in the niche. They don't fear the same weird self-consciousness that we have. I'm not saying that like I'm a part of those people who come in a niche or whatever. Actually, I'm not. I wish I was. I wish I was, because it's a mentality that allows you to be way more productive. The whole thing with content creation now is the fact that people can come in and actually make money. It can be a business. It doesn't have to be self-expression. It doesn't have to be art. There is this balance. You can make content purely to express yourself. You can also make content because it pays. And of course, most people are in between. But what I want to say is that the approach is absolutely different. Almost always different. If I'm coming in to a niche as a content creator and I see it as a business and I'm like, I'm here to make money, I will come up with a business plan. I will study the target audience. I will figure out what they like, what they don't like, what are they polarized on, and my content will be very impactful. It's like making a restaurant that specializes in one specific food in an area where they don't have that kind of food. It's like, yeah, it's gonna work. Or, like an industrial zone where there's a bunch of, construction workers, but there's no restaurants. You pull up with a food truck, you're gonna make bank. But the other guy who's gonna open up a restaurant right next to you, but who's like, ooh, I only make luxury food, like I specialize in caviar because I always had this love for luxury restoration. Is that how you say it in English? Anyway, for luxury foods and blah, blah, blah. Who's gonna make more money in your opinion? Anyways, all that to say, we end up with an abundance of people who just do whatever they want, right? And the goal becomes please the algorithm, cater to people's basic animal instinct, I want to say. And again, I wish I was like, I'm not like that. I'm actually in the camp of, oh, I have this artistic expression. Oh, I need to express myself. Ooh, I want to be creative. Oh, no, I would never do that. Oh, I want to keep my dignity or whatever. So I ended up being at this point where I was writing down different strategies that I wouldn't necessarily use because, it's like faking this or faking that or tricking people, right? Without necessarily deception, because that's when it's really bad. When there's no deception, it's actually not bad, unfortunately. I wouldn't do it, but technically it's not bad. As long as there's no deception, there is no, fraud or scam. And I really wanted to make a series where I tell you about all those different techniques, and I might do it depending on the comments that you guys leave. I wanted to talk about it in my podcast. I ended up canceling that. I wanted to make like a whole series called Evil Advice. And I felt so guilty about, potentially giving people ideas on how to do those, morally things. But yeah, personally, I can talk about the subject for hours. Basically, people who are less emotionally invested in a certain niche are might be more likely, I don't have any numbers, to find success because they are not limited by the fear of prejudice or the fear of being judged and any of that, right? They have a more, I'm not going to say surgical, but a more rational, a more strategized approach. I don't know, maybe that's something that we should learn. I think the message might be reevaluate your own emotional connection to things, especially if it's irrational, first of all, and if it's keeping you from doing certain things by like fear. Because I feel like if I'm really passionate about something and I want to express something, but I'm too scared that it's limiting. It's too limiting. So I feel like you can learn from that by just allowing yourself to be more expressive. Because otherwise, you preserving your voice to keep your dignity is not going to help when the majority of the audience is going to end up listening to someone who doesn't care about them or doesn't care about the subject as much. So if you're really passionate about your niche, you should go for it, you know? You should actually fight to be a voice within that niche because you represent people who love this specific thing. That's you. That's not them. That's you. So do something about it.